How's everyone doing today? Let the record show that we call this regular board meeting to order. Our clock is fast. That's fast. On March 21st at 3:01 p.m. We'll start at the top of the agenda with our prayer. Today we have with us Reverend Anton Elwood from New Mount Zion Church. He's going to give our invocation. Everyone can please stand.
Let us pray. Holy Father and Creator, we pause for a moment to thank you and reverence you for all that you are and all that you mean to each of us. We pray, God, that you would continue to bless not only this commission, oh God, but the citizens of the county. Bless every single person, oh God, that gives leadership in the county, God. We pray, God, your hand of guidance and of love even in these proceedings today. We are asking kindly, God, that you would love on us, be with us, and allow us to keep the main thing the main thing. Because I am a Christian, I seal this prayer in Jesus' name, and I give respect to every other faith background in this building. Amen.
Amen. All right, we'll start the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Okay, we move now to awards and presentations. We'll start with myself recognizing the new Leon County inductees to the Florida Veterans Hall of Fame. Those inductees can join me at the podium. How you doing? Come on over. I had the opportunity to attend the plaque presentation where their names were placed on a plaque downstairs. It was very special. And at that presentation, these gentlemen, I promised them that the board would have proclamations honoring them for their contribution to our nation and what they've done for Leon County. I'm going to go first with Mr. Sergeant Gordon Lightfoot and, well, actually, you get one each, Lieutenant Glenn Suffin. Whereas the Florida Veteran Hall of Fame was proposed by retired Air Force Colonel Bruce Host and created by the Florida legislature in 2011 to honor the military veterans of the state of Florida for their accomplishments in business, civic, political, public service, charitable, and other worthy pursuits that impact their fellow Floridians. And whereas United States Marine Corps Sergeant Gordon Lightfoot served 4 years in the 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines during the Vietnam War. And whereas Sergeant Lightfoot became a veterans advocate in retirement, his work included becoming the founding chairman of the support committee for the Tallahassee National Cemetery, serving 4 years as a member of the Department of Veteran Affairs National Cemetery Administration's Advisory Committee for Cemeteries and Memorials, serving as the Post-Service Officer for VFW Post 3308, a member of the VFW Post Big Bend Honor Guard, and as Commander of the AMVETS Post 1776, where he led efforts to secure funding for the Patriot Bell Tower in Carolyn for the Tallahassee National Cemetery, which can now be heard daily with the national anthem playing at 0800 hours and taps at 1630 hours. And whereas Lieutenant Colonel Gary Sutphin, Glenn, my reading glasses. Colonel Glenn Suffin served 30 years in the United States Army and Florida Army National Guard. And whereas following his military retirement in 1999, Lieutenant Suffin worked for the Florida Department of Military Affairs, first as a specialist and later as the Legislative Affairs Director. In 2016, he was appointed by the governor as Executive Director of the Florida Department of Veteran Affairs. He initiated a program with the Department of Motor Vehicles to identify veterans as they registered vehicles or renewed their driver's license, so they would then be advised of their benefits for being a veteran in Florida. Secured Florida standards for building veterans nursing homes, helped establish the Tallahassee National Cemetery, and worked with USF and FSU to establish veteran services centers at both universities. And whereas because these and many more services rendered between Sergeant Lightfoot and Lieutenant Suffin were inducted into the Florida Veterans Hall of Fame on December 19, 2022. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners in Leon County, Florida, that we recognize and honor Sergeant Gary Gordon. Gary, who is Gary? Sergeant Gordon Lightfoot and Lieutenant Glenn Suffin for their induction into the Florida Veterans Hall of Fame and for their service both in the United States Air Force and to their community thereafter. This is signed by myself as well as the rest of the commission and attested to by the county administrator. One for you.
Thank you, sir.
And one for you, and I would love for you gentlemen to speak.
Please, sir. Thank you very much. This has been quite an honor. I didn't prepare anything, but I've been known to talk for a little while. That's what we do, is talk, right? I've been in Leon County since 1980, and I've had various positions. Matter of fact, I watched this building. I've worked a couple blocks away and watched this building built back in the, I think it was late 80s that it went up. But I just want to say that the Leon County and the city of Tallahassee are two of the most veteran-friendly places in the state of Florida. The Leon County Commission and the city of Tallahassee both contributed significantly to get our bell tower built out at the National Cemetery, and you continue to provide funding. I was able to obtain some grant funds from the county for the VFW and for American Legion and for the Military Order of Purple Hearts, and so we're very appreciative and of the support of this county and this whole area, quite frankly. And thank you very much for this. I could go on, but Glenn probably has a couple words to say.
Well, again, thank you all very much. As Gordon said, y'all are the most friendly and veteran-friendly and military-friendly county in the state. As a matter of fact, I don't know, you never take credit for it, but the first Veterans Court to try to give our troubled veterans a chance back into life took place in Texas. Once you saw that, you established the second one ever in Florida in Leon County. Now, that's really a big thing because a number of veterans who have had problems, mental health issues, drug problems, have now been able to return to society where they're no longer homeless and they're able to participate and take care of their families. That's really something, and because of y'all's attitude, I was able to do a lot of things. For instance, identifying homeless veterans who had been buried unnamed, and we were able to recover them and send them back to their families or to a national cemetery. That's really a big thing for families. So again, thank you. The reason we got this award is because you all supported us. Otherwise, we'd just be a couple old veterans out here. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, am I up next again?
Mr. Chair,
You want to introduce next item?
I just want to briefly commend the honorees for just being tremendous veterans and citizens of the United States, and even more importantly, they've come to Tallahassee and just contributed to our community. And I want you to know that we certainly appreciate all of your service to the country, to Leon County, to Tallahassee, and I think you know this board of Leon County Commission is very supportive of the veterans. So I just didn't want to miss this opportunity to tell you all, thank you from the bottom of my heart, and thank you on behalf of the commission.
You know, the commissioners wish to speak? All right. Madam Chairman, up next. Madam Chair?
I'm sorry.
Madam Vice Chair, am I up next? I believe I am next on the agenda. Okay, thank you. All right, next I will be presenting a proclamation to the Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month. Talking too fast today. Those who are representing the organization, would you please come up? All right. Whereas multiple sclerosis, MS, is a neurodegenerative disease of the central nervous system that affects nearly 1 million people in the United States alone. And whereas multiple sclerosis generally strikes people in the prime of their life between the ages of 20 through 50, the cause and course of the often debilitating symptoms of MS remain unknown, with no cure currently existing. And whereas the National Multiple Sclerosis Society has transformed what it means to live with MS by providing global leadership to help achieve a vision of a world free of MS. And whereas since 1946, the National Multiple Sclerosis Society has been a driving force in MS research, relentlessly pursuing prevention, treatments, and a cure, and has invested more than $1 billion in groundbreaking research. And whereas funds raised through the National Multiple Sclerosis Society fuel research on pathways to MS cures and invest in the MS research workforce at the best medical centers, universities, and other institutions throughout the U.S. and abroad, leading to many breakthroughs in the treatment of MS. And whereas stopping MS in its tracks, restoring what has been lost, and ending MS forever is the mission of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, and one that all Americans and Floridians should support. And whereas Leon County recognizes the importance of finding the cause and cure of MS, enhancing treatments, and supporting those who live with MS as well as their families. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners, Leon County, Florida, that March 23rd be known as Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month in Leon County, and further expresses its appreciation to the National Multiple Sclerosis Society for its efforts in creating a world free from MS. It's signed by myself as well as the rest of the commission, attested to by the county administrator. Congratulations. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. I want to first say thank you on behalf of all of us for this proclamation, because a lot of people don't know, because MS is an invisible disease. Because today we can be up walking around, tomorrow it may be where we can't get out of bed or we need a wheelchair. I keep a cane in my car just in case, because I never know. And people just seem to think that you look okay on the outside, but on the inside your body you may be breaking down. You may not be able to see. You may lose hair. Everything is different for each and every one of us. And that's something that we're in the capital city of Florida, but yet and still we don't have the same resources that UF has, that has a wonderful place. And a lot of us go out of town for doctors and neurologists because we don't have those services here. But this is something that helps get the word out on how important it is for the research. And I hope that we will see you all on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on FAMU Way for our walk that we do every year to help support us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Please. Now, if you speak, you gotta walk and run on Saturday. All right. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I just want to thank you for making this proclamation. Not someone that really talks about my family, especially publicly, much, but my mom actually suffers from MS, and I watch her struggle with that through my life. And for those of you who don't know, it is a degenerative disease that can affect you different ways at different times, and really did cause some issues for my family growing up, and she's in her mid-60s now, still battling with it. So, Mr. Chair, I appreciate you making that proclamation and bringing recognition to Multiple Sclerosis Month.
Thank you. I actually have multiple family members who suffer from MS too, so I can definitely identify. Thank you for those words. Next, we have Commissioner Minor presenting a proclamation recognizing Sandy Beck, the Education Director for St. Francis Wildlife Association, for her years of service. Commissioner Minor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have the proclamation as follows. Whereas teaching in Leon County schools, Sandy Beck also voluntarily served for 34 years from 1989 to 2023 as the Education Director of St. Francis Wildlife Association, Inc., our local wildlife rehabilitation center. And whereas during her tenure, Ms. Beck was responsible for outreach and education programs conducted through the Wild Classroom benefiting SFW. And whereas Ms. Beck also supported SFW and contributed to the community by writing blogs and articles, appearing on television and radio, preparing a quarterly newsletter, coordinating fundraisers, and building a global following on social media. And whereas Ms. Beck writes a column for the Tallahassee Democrat about how to live in harmony with our wild neighbors, and is working on a book about living and learning with wildlife. And whereas, as a nature writer, Ms. Beck received Florida Magazine Association awards for writing excellence with Florida Wildlife Magazine. And whereas Ms. Beck has received a Leon Association of Science Teachers Excellence in Teaching Award, a Girl Scout Council of the Florida Panhandle's Woman of Distinction Award, and was a Tallahassee Community College Women's History Month honoree as one of 10 local women taking the lead to save our planet. And whereas Ms. Beck impacted the lives of tens of thousands of injured and orphaned wild animals and thousands of concerned citizens. And whereas Ms. Beck has devoted her life caring for injured animals and teaching our community how to peacefully coexist with wildlife. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Leon County, Florida, that today we celebrate Ms. Sandy Beck for her enduring contributions to the people and wildlife of Leon County. Signed by the Board of County Commissioners. Thank you, Ms. Beck. Now, Ms. Beck, your career resonates with our family, my family at home, tremendously. I have a 9-year-old daughter who talks incessantly about helping wildlife, and I think she's going to be the next Jane Goodall, but I think next Sandy Beck, I think, actually. She's going to specialize in snakes, so if you were to ask her now, she would want to become a herpetologist. But thank you for everything that you do, and would you like to say a few words?
Okay. It's much easier for me to speak with an owl on my hand, but I'll give it a go. It's been an absolute privilege and joy to serve as St. Francis Wildlife's educator and spokesperson for the last 34 years, caring for raptors and other handicapped wild animals that help nurture a personal connection with our precious natural world and create a generation of wildlife champions like your daughter. Because what we understand, appreciate, and love, we will protect. Thank you so much for this honor.
While taking that picture, next up we have Commissioner Welch presenting a proclamation to Gary and Kim Anton, the owners of Bradfordville Blues Club.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gary and Kim, join me up here. Now, this is Gary and Kim Anton. They own the Bradfordville Blues Club, which sadly we learned about a month ago is going to be either closing down or transitioning. Hopefully transitioning to some new ownership. Now, as somebody who grew up in Mississippi, the home of the blues, I have an affinity for the music that we play out there. The Blues Club is a Tallahassee treasure. I've had the privilege of going a couple times and enjoying some Friday and Saturday nights out there by the bonfire with some catfish from Miss Ernestine. And And my house is 2 miles as the crow flies from the Blues Club, and I can tell you on a clear night, I have heard it. All right?
So have the other neighbors.
Yes. We've talked to a few of those neighbors too, but the Blues Club is a great institution in our city and our community, and we're sad that you guys are rolling on into a little more free time. But Gary mentioned to me in the foyer earlier that they think it's strange to get a proclamation for just having fun. But I told them that they've provided a lot of fun for a lot of people, and so it's only appropriate that we give them a proclamation. So I'm going to read that for y'all right now. Whereas Gary and Kim Anton have operated the historic Bradfordville Blues Club for more than 22 years, bringing the heart, soul, and the spirit of the blues to Leon County through their leadership and bookings at the club. And whereas during their time as owners and operators of the Bradfordville Blues Club, have booked artists from around the country who have provided live entertainment that inspired and connected diverse audiences of residents and visitors in their love of live music and the blues. And whereas with a slew of dedicated music-loving volunteers, they have operated the Bradfordville Blues Club, the only venue in the state of Florida on the Mississippi Blues Trail, and have built the club's reputation as the premier blues club in the capital city region. And whereas Gary and Kim Anton have booked legacy artists such as Johnny Winter, Pine Top Perkins, John Primer, James Cotton, Bobby Blue Bland, Mim Shannon, Bob Margolin, Eddie Kirkland, Colonel Bruce Hampton, E.G. Kite, Joey Gilmore, Mac Arnold, and the Pat Ramsey Band, and many others. And whereas through leading the Tallahassee blues music community, Gary and Kim Anton have nurtured a deep community-wide appreciation for the live blues music performances and blues music history. And whereas Gary and Kim Anton's service for the betterment of live blues music, artists, audiences, the community at large, and the blues music industry have set the standard for others in demonstrating the power of the blues and unifying and building a better community. And whereas they have been keeping the blues alive at the historic and unique Bradfordville Blues Club and have cultivated friendships and love from customers, club irregulars, musicians, bands, and the community at large. And whereas the Bradfordville Blues Club celebrates the 22 years that Gary and Kim Anton have booked a variety of musicians and bands that have offered soul-filled, entertaining ways for music lovers of all backgrounds and ages to experience and engage with beloved local and touring blues artists from around the nation. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Leon County, Florida, that today we honor and celebrate Gary and Kim Anton as they step away from their positions at the Bradfordville Blues Club, and the Capital City region celebrates this milestone and the legacy of their lasting impact and influence on our community. Dated this 21st day of March 2023, signed by all the county commissioners. Let's give them a big round of applause. Say anything?
Thank you, Commissioner, and we really thank the board for giving us this proclamation. As Brian said, it's a little anonymous to be receiving an award for having the time of our lives for the last 2 decades. Unfortunately, we are getting older, and we do want to do some other things, so we are hopefully turning the club over to some dedicated club regulars, and just knock on wood that they'll continue on the tradition. Although Kim and I ran the club, it's taken a community, it's taken a village to run the place. Kim and I were just the village idiots. The community, the local community, the local musicians, the national blues community, have kept the club alive over these last 20-something years. In 2018, a tree fell down and took out a good part of the club. We didn't have insurance. The community donated over $40,000 to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. We got going again, and then the community hit, the COVID hit. And we were shut down for a year. And again, the community donated their time, their money, to keep the club going. It's a very magical place if you all have not been out there. It is one of the last juke joints in the country. The bands love it. We have the Mississippi Blues Trail marker, the only club in the state of Florida to have that marker. The Blues Foundation has given us the Keeping the Blues Alive Award for the historical significance of that club to the Blues. And it's been a great run. We appreciate everything that everybody has done, and particularly the community. And in fact, the county celebrated their Earth Day out there, I think in 2006 and 2007, maybe it was 2007 or 2008. So we thank the county for its support and everybody else who has contributed. And let's knock on wood that the new owners can get a lease and keep the club going, keep the legacy alive. It is a rare gem. It's in Tallahassee. It's in our backyards. We need to keep it alive if we can. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Minor, you want to speak?
Yeah, put the rose in the middle. No, the rose in the middle. You're the rose. Thorn in the side.
There we go.
Chairman, I heard that what goes on in the Bradfordville Blues Club stays in the Bradfordville Blues Club.
Well, I heard there were plenty of stories about you out there.
Yeah, that's what they want you to think. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
thank you. Gary and Kim, I just want to thank you for everything, for an amazing 22 years. I wish you the best. I'm a big fan of music. I tried really hard to get good at the guitar and realized I had zero musical ability. But I appreciate and admire the folks who do, just like you two do. And so thank you for everything. And like you, I've got my fingers crossed for the survival of the Bradford Blues Club. So thank you for everything to both of you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Minor. Next up, I have Commissioner Caban. I'm also going to, I'm sorry, I'm the Vice Chair.
I'm sorry.
You press the button. There you go. All right, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to congratulate Gary and Kim for all the years that they've contributed to the art of music in this community. Unfortunately, I never visited the club, but I heard some good things about it. And I also just want to note that many of you all might not know that Gary was one of the great employment law attorneys, civil rights attorneys over the years. As a matter of fact, he was my mediator on a couple of employment cases. So he was a great attorney as well as a great club owner. So thank you for all your contribution to this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I would like to also invite up School Board Member Daryl Jones to present this proclamation with Commissioner Caban. The proclamation will be presented to Steve
Lewisburg,
Yeah,
Ace
Lewisburg,
Hardware.
manager of the Ace Hardware in Woodville, for the partnership with the agricultural program at Woodville School. Commissioner Caban, you have the floor. I believe the superintendent, Mr. Superintendent, you come up too with us, if you don't mind. The superintendent?
Superintendent here? Is he still-
Yes, he is.
Oh, there he is. Come on.
Thank you for coming up.
Students,
I can see you out there.
Dr.
Yes,
Mayer.
please.
So I'd like to give some backstory on this proclamation. Part of just furthering my knowledge about our district, I did a tour at all the schools, and when I was doing the Woodville K-8 tour, I learned about their agriculture program, which teaches kids about how to be good custodians in agriculture, and they had goats and amongst other chickens, amongst other animals. And during the tour, they told me that Ace Hardware across the street was selling supplies at extreme discounts and at cost in order to fund the program. And I think it's so important to have, we talk about public and private partnerships, and I think that this is just the perfect example that we would like to see in our community. So thank you all, and we have some students here. We have Dr. Mir here, who's the principal, and Mr. Edwards, who runs the program. So we'll get right to it. Whereas Steve Lewisburg and store manager Samantha Morris is the operations manager at Ace Hardware located at 9382 Woodville Highway. And whereas Woodville School is a pre-K through 8 school located across the street from Ace Hardware. And whereas Ace Hardware in Woodville has partnered with the school's agricultural program and different grade levels to provide resources to the school and learning opportunities to students. And whereas Woodville, Ace Hardware supports Woodville teachers by celebrating them during a Teacher Appreciation Week and donating supplies to help alleviate some of the financial burden and meet classrooms' needs. And whereas Samantha Morris facilitates a walking field trip 3 times a year for the first graders at Woodville that provides students with a hands-on learning experience where students learn about hardware basics, painting, planting, animal responsibilities, and different animals, alligators, horses, dogs, screech owls. And whereas Woodville Ace Hardware provides goods for the agriculture program at cost or donates the program necessities. And whereas the Woodville Ace Hardware was awarded the coolest Ace Hardware store on the planet in 2020 by Ace Hardware. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Leon County, Florida, that we express our gratitude to Ace Hardware of Woodville for its collaboration, generosity, and commitment to partnering with Woodville School in order to enhance the learning experience of students, help meet the needs of the teachers' classrooms, and support the agriculture program. Dated this day, the 21st day of March, 2023, signed my colleagues on the Board of County Commissioners and County Administrator Vince Long. Thank you.
Well, thank you to the commission. For those who don't know, Ace Hardware is a buying co-op, so we are all small, independently owned stores. And anybody that's been in a small business will tell you that the community is your lifeblood. If the community doesn't accept you, you're not going to last very long. We opened in 1997, and there were plenty of people that probably didn't think we'd still be there at this time. But the community of Woodville and the surrounding people have been absolutely tremendous to us. And so I would say it's an honor for us to be able to be involved in the community and do things that can help, and to be able to support the educational efforts and the educators in the area is something that I don't think should be thought of as exceptional, but should be expected. And so we are happy that we have that opportunity. So again, thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. School Board Member Jones or Superintendent?
Yeah, I don't talk a lot. Actually, I remember the very moment that my life changed 27 years ago, and it was thanks to agriculture. I'm not from here. I'm from right next door in Liberty County. And I had said about 3 words my entire life, believe it or not, up until 9th grade. And an ag teacher by the name of Jerry Register would not take no for an answer for public speaking. And I failed miserably in that jacket. Where you at, Tristan? In that jacket. Awful. But I remember that as the day where I sat down in a room about this many people and thought back, well, that was as bad as it could have been, and I did not die. So from there, I never quit talking again, and here we are. So I have traveled around, I've received several degrees, and I can tie it all back to that one moment in agriculture and FFA in Calhoun County when I just crashed and burned on a stage, and then the lessons that it opened up from there. So to talk anymore would be stealing the spotlight away from these kids, Dr. Meir, Superintendent Hannah, the people that actually matter. They invited me here to be a part of this, and I'm really blessed to be here. And I just want to thank you all for recognizing, and especially Commissioner Caban, who did have to immunize a goat. He is not making that story up. It means a lot to us to see you as public officials notice our kids and support them, and you never know, you may never know when that one moment happens that completely changed the course of some kid's life. But I see you all reading on the monitors up here and things. All of those things that you do, keep doing them. Keep doing them. It does so much good for the kids to see that you care, and you never know that one moment that you change one kid's entire world, and we end up here. And I've never been more proud, I think, than when Tristan asked if he could wear my old FFA jacket today. How things come back around, right? 26 years later, here we are. So these kids actually brought you something. I think when Superintendent Hannah was there last, our quail were babies. So these are our grand quail, we like to say, and they are the very first run of the eggs that our next generation of poultry producers have put out. Y'all want to do the honors? And again, just thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now,
Thank you.
are these quail eggs? Oh my gosh, y'all are giving us quail eggs? No. You gotta grow, I don't know what you do with them. Don't eat them.
Don't throw them at another.
I assume that was Mr. Edwards that was just speaking?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I want to say thank you as an educator myself, and of course, Commissioner Caban's predecessors, a dear friend of ours and also an educator. You really encapsulated very well the essence of why we do what we do in the school system, reaching people and trying to change lives, and I just wanted to say to you how much I appreciate those words and appreciate your efforts and everybody within our school system, Board Member Jones, Superintendent Hannah, all your administration and the staff at Woodville. It's important what we do, and you really captured the essence of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Nice little picture there. Commissioner Proctor.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Caban might know a little bit clearer, but I believe this is one of the few places you can buy live chickens in Leon County. And Ms. Lewisburg, do y'all still have live chicken, baby chicks down here?
We do.
Is there anywhere else you can buy live?
It's been hard to get them this year.
Okay. But you're the only venue in Leon County that have live chicks.
I'm not sure where else has them, honestly. We just order really early in the season, a lot of them.
Right. So we wanted to pitch that if you want some live chicken. There you have it. Thank you.
Thank you all.
It's good to see the superintendent here as well as School Board Member Jones.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Caban. Thank you, Superintendent Hannah and Board Member Jones for being here for that presentation. We'll move now to citizens to be heard on non-agenda items. Are there any citizens to be heard on non-agenda items, Mr. Administrator?
We have none.
We have none. All right. We have two items pulled from consent, item number 5 and item number 12. Can I have a motion for the rest of consent? Consent has been moved by Commissioner Welch, seconded by Commissioner Minor. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries without objection. We'll start with item number 5, but after the introduction of item number 5, I'm going to ask, I believe we have Ms. Sika Green here. I'm going to ask her to give a quick presentation after the introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, this item seeks your approval of a memorandum of understanding between Leon County, the City of Tallahassee, and the Children's Services Council of Leon County, and it follows your direction to pursue same. So we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Ms. Green?
Good afternoon, members of the Leon County Commission. I am Sika Rose Green, the very proud Executive Director of the Children's Services Council of Leon County. I would like to give recognition to 3 of our council members, 2 who have left, and that's Council Member Daryl Jones with the school board and Council Member Rocky Hanna, Superintendent of Schools, and our 3rd council member who is amongst your midst, and that's Council Member Carolyn Cummings. I was asked today to just give a brief update on the Children's Services Council of Leon County and where we are with the work that we're doing. I will start by saying that I have been in this position for just over a year. As a matter of fact, it's been 15 months, and it has been fast and furious ever since. We were able to collect our first ad valorem tax revenue in the fall of 2021, just before I started, in the amount of about $6.9 million. We have been using that funding. In the summer of last year, we were able to distribute $1.56 million in summer programming. And I want to be clear that that funding was to fill the gaps that were created through COVID. So the board, actually championed by Commissioner Cummings, felt very strongly that the council should get some programming in place to have spots for parents to send their children as we were coming back from COVID. So that cycle was very quick. We awarded that funding in May, and it was on the streets June 1st, and it was used through August 30th of last year. As I said, we distributed $1.56 million. We only had $36,000 that went unused and was returned to the council. So what that says to me, and I believe to our council members, is that that was definitely needed funding and it was used. Additionally, with that funding, we were able to assist 13,000 families in Leon County. Those are 13,000 individual services that were provided to families in Leon County. So I wanted to give you that quick history. Our second ad valorem tax revenue collection happened in the fall of 22, and we are in the midst of that right now. We are, it's been estimated that we'll collect about $6.4 to $6.9 million, and we put that with our rollover from the year before, which was about $4.5 million, and we currently are using an operating budget of $12.8 million. Of that, $10.7 million has been earmarked for programming here in Leon County. We have a very advantageous schedule to get $10.1 million of that out and allocated before the end of this fiscal year, September 30th, 2023. And if you'll allow me, I'd like to give you the categories and the funding amounts that we are looking at to be able to distribute that funding. So when the council did its strategic planning, they took the three priority areas: success in school and life, healthy children, youth, and families, and stable and nurturing communities and families, and broke it down to determine what would be their highest priorities. The council prioritized 8 areas: high quality early learning, family supports, the summer bridge funding, which is similar to last year, but with accountability, oversight, and objectives, prenatal and postnatal supports, homelessness for youth, youth development, mental and behavioral health, and youth gun violence. So over the last year, my team has worked very hard to come up with a strategic framework that takes into consideration all of these categories and present that to the council for them to make final decisions on how that programming will look and what kind of procurements we will make. We have been able to get through summer bridge funding, and the determination is that that funding, which the application actually ends today, so for all the organizations out there, 5 o'clock, the application closes. And that's $1.6 million in 2 categories: summer learning, to help address summer slide and to keep our children engaged so that they don't lose what they have learned over the summer, and summer feeding. Our needs assessment clearly showed that during the summer months, our children and families really struggle to stay fed and to have nutrition. So the summer feeding will look to expand summer feeding programs that are already in the community so that they can serve more people. High quality early learning. We already have an agreement with the Early Learning Coalition of Big Bend for $250,000 for an on-ramp program, and that program will allow us to partner with them to support families just above the income limits to be able to get into school readiness to pay their first month. Thereby, the Early Learning Coalition can use their resources to pay the next 11 months. So we are leveraging $2.5 $1.88 million to the $250,000 that we will invest in that program. And if all goes well, we expect it to, we will help about 505 children get into school readiness and get into early learning. Lastly, of the $10.1 million that we are hoping to get infused and working very hard to get infused, we are looking at creating programs under the Family Supports Framework that include family resource centers that would address the issues in specific neighborhoods. We're looking to get one provider to help establish up to 3 by 2025. Family strengthening and parent engagement. And those programs will help to stabilize the family, as the family is the base of all childhood development and all childhood rearing. And then the third is mentoring, because we know that if children have one caring adult, non-family member in their life, they tend to do much better than if they don't have that. We will be presenting in April to the Program Services Committee additional strategies for high-quality early learning, which could involve an expansion of the on-ramp program that I designed to thereby help families or people or parents who either want to be in school and can't, or want to be working and can't because they cannot afford childcare. In order to get the ELC funds, they have to either already be enrolled in school or they have to already be working. So we're looking at how we expand that program such that we can support up to 3 months of childcare for that parent, and that parent can then go out and get enrolled in school or be able to look for and get a job. So with that is kind of a brief, I don't know if it was brief, now that I think about it, but that was a brief update of where we are. Of course, we are subject to trim, and we will be looking at our budget to see where we will be next year. But I am extremely proud of the work that my small staff has done. There are 4 3/4 of us that have been doing this work, and I am so excited that by the end of September, we will have infused $10.1 million of these taxpayers' money to help children and families in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green. A very extensive day. About a round of applause. I think everybody approves. I'm going to have Commissioner Minor and Commissioner Cummings in queue to speak. Commissioner Minor, if you don't mind, because Commissioner Cummings is our appointee, I'm going to go with Commissioner Cummings first, and then I'm going to come straight to you. Madam Vice Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank our very able Executive Director for that summary of all the hard work that she and her staff, along with the council, have done since the inception of the Children's Services Council. We are so excited about the programs that have been provided to our children last year. We're excited about the programs that Ms. Green just articulated that will be rolled out within the next couple of months. And I believe moving forward, we will have ongoing programs that will engage our children, and hopefully the statistics that we have related to our children and their progress will be very, very positive. We've got some innovative programs coming on board, and we appreciate all of our nonprofits. We certainly, Mr. Chair, appreciate the county being a partner. I certainly support agenda item number 5, and I just want this board to know that I am very, very proud and humbled that this board selected me to be your representative on the Children's Services Council. So thank you, Ms. Green. We appreciate all the hard work that you and your staff have devoted to our children. Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair, I'm so sorry. I'm a stickler for a process, and I did not get a motion before you spoke. Do you have a motion to set on the floor?
I so move acceptance, Mr. Chair.
Staff recommendation has been moved by Vice Chair Cummings, seconded by Commissioner Minor. Commissioner Minor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Green, thank you very much for coming to speak. I'm going to be voting in favor of the motion on the floor, of course. I support the CSC's mission. I know the director and the staff and the CSC council members have been working very hard and in good faith toward the mission. I requested the item be pulled initially because when I saw the budget proposal at first, it seemed to high to me based on my knowledge of nonprofits, not with foundation-related nonprofits, but just my work with Second Harvest and such. But after talking with Ms. Green and one of the council members, it looks like the budget proposal is very much in line with what other CSCs in the state have been doing over the years. You said Martin, St. Lucie, and Alachua in particular have structures that are very similar to what Ms. Green is proposing and what the CSC will be talking about on Thursday. So thanks for everything that you're doing. You're doing good work. And thanks for coming and providing the update. It's really helpful for us to hear what you all are doing. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, I circulated a letter to each of you yesterday. I shared this letter with members of the City Commission. I shared this letter with members of the Children's Services Council and with our county administrator and with Ms. Green. The letter speaks for itself. I won't be redundant. But Ms. Green, my ask to the Board of County Commissioners before we enter into a memorandum of understanding, which is sort of like I think you cut your finger and I cut mine and we do that and we become blood brothers and sisters, something like that. Before we become blood brothers and sisters, this report, I wanted to make sure that last week, reports published, on yesterday, reports published with respect to we've not finished the hiring. And if that is indeed true, my angst is with the hiring component for us to put our names and, to cut our fingers and become blood related. Are you all on task and track to fulfill the organizational chart which this community was presented and what was projected to us as the end game for hiring? And if not, is there a timetable or what hindereth thou from moving forward to secure the needed positions? And I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Proctor. So as been published in our meeting packet that is on our website, www.cscleon.org, there are scenarios there for hiring that include bringing on 3 positions and then 2 positions. Our council is being very judicious about taxpayer funding and want to ensure that we are bringing staffing on that is congruent with the work that we need to be doing and are doing. I do believe that the proposal that I have presented does just that, and I expect that we will have a really good and robust discussion on Thursday to see where we land with those positions. But my desire is to bring on 3 additional team members, which would take us to 7, and I don't think we would need anything anytime soon if we were to get those positions. That being said, whatever our council settles on, we will do our best to do the work that needs to be done with that. However, we are working with a very aggressive timeline. And so it would definitely be helpful for us to be able to bring on some more positions to do the work.
Very good. I asserted this letter in the public space to indicate and to urge and to push Councilmember Cummings my strong support that we, with $12 million, I think I wrote that number, $12.8 million, I need to know what hindereth this council from securing the talent which you projected. Councilmember Jones, I won't be at that meeting on Thursday. I can't make that. But I took time to put this out. Now, for me, that you not think my passions have gone askew. We had the primary health care committee some years ago, We did a study from a group out in some part of Texas, county administrator and assistant administrator recall that. And we did an assessment for the needs of children in this county. And from that, the 2006 referendum for the penny sales tax for women and children, to see the doctor, and it would have raised $18 million, I believe it was, Alan, might help me. And we put that before. Your predecessor, Commissioner O'Keefe, Commissioner Welch. Y'all go to the same family reunion?
Yes.
You can get in. I promise you get in. You're the man. Excuse me. We absolutely, it took a beating, died 60-40. Your predecessor campaigned hard against it. It was an effort from 2006 to bring forth. So this county has seen the needs of children falling through the crevices, the cracks, and what have you, for a long time. We placed it in front of the voters more than a decade ago, 2006. It was rejected. So when our mayor, sitting in your chair, Commissioner O'Keefe, brought forward the idea for a Children's Services Council, it was like lifting up the 2006 referendum again. Same concerns, same research, but thank God the community's heart. And more people were able to see from their hearts and not from their wallets the value of a penny and what it might do for children. But the county's shoulder has been there a long time. And that's why this memoranda to me today moves me. I served on the primary health committee that dealt with those issues then. It's been dissolved since. And Ms. Green, the voters adopted the CSC, and it includes some of the elements of which from 2019, the 32304 investigations sought to identify and to name and categorize poverty. All of that is inextricably bound together. And that's why with $12 million in the bank, I need y'all to get the staff, because the work, a generation of kids since 2006, whole generation have gone. So we're playing catch up. And I need to also say that this touches me because a whole lot of this affects my district. And as that district commissioner, pushing these measures for a little while now, I should say a long time, I just need y'all to load up the guns, start firing at the problems, and let's please get results. And I'm talking strictly from a heart that have sat on this dais over time, longing for the responsibility which you have to discharge in the interest of poor families and children. I'm voting for this, and I'm voting on this with my total heart, with memories of how much work and sacrifice of previous commissioners and voters of some wanted this and some didn't. But finally, the majority of our community is behind you. So we say thank you, Commissioner Cummings, Councilman Jones, for what you all are doing. And I ask that you not be dissuaded by naysayers, that you not be dissuaded by those who are not for the mission of what has to be done, but which has been documented since 2004. Those things said, Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to join my colleagues in giving the lift, giving the nod, and cutting my finger and laying it across the council and to become blood relation with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Immediate Past Chair. Thank you so much. So we have a motion on the floor for staff recommendation by Commissioner Cummings, seconded by Commissioner Minor. Any objection? Seeing none, short is passed. Thank you so much, Ms. Green.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go on to the next item, Mr. Administrator, item number 12.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, this item seeks your approval of funding recommendations for the tourist development tax allocated through the Community Redevelopment Agency. Before you, Commissioners, is the CRA Board's recommendations, subject to your approval, of awarding 3 grants of approximately $2 million to be dispersed to Lemoyne Art Foundation, Challenger Learning Center, and a consortia of Indaba Incorporated, Florida Lit Fest, Tallahassee Symphony, and the Southern Shakespeare Incorporated. Commissioners, we have just a few citizens' speaker cards on this item as well.
Speakers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First speaker, Ariel Raff.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Ariel Raff. I'm the Executive Director of Lemoyne Arts, and I am just here to support the funding recommendations that have been made, and also here to answer any questions. There are several of us from Lemoyne Arts here today.
Thank you. Next speaker?
Donna Cotterill.
Name and address for record, please, ma'am. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Donna Cotterill. I live at 703 Osceola Street, and I am happy, excited to see this moving forward, and I am looking for recommendations to move some more funding in the programming, also known as events, part of our application. We have 18 months of programming that is geared towards the African American experience, but also other sectors of our community, our Native American community, our Hispanic community, as well as looking at the churches through this bicentennial lens and lifting up various parts of the community, as well as bringing music. One of the highlights is the Funk and Blues concert, which we want to recognize one of our own Tallahassee residents, George Clinton, the godfather of funk, as many of you know. But the blues, and you know, we recognize the Bradfordville Blues Club. We know how important the blues is to the South, and we want to be able to expose more people to the blues in that venue. And I believe I've spoken to all of you and given you my ideas and my recommendations, and so I hope that you'll take those recommendations into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker?
Next speaker, Alan Hanstein.
Name and address for record, please, sir.
Alan Hanstein, 3234 Yates Avenue, Tallahassee, Florida. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, County Administrator. My name is Alan Hanstein. I'm the Executive Director for the Challenger Learning Center. I'm the very proud Executive Director of the Challenger Learning Center of Tallahassee. The screen, got that? Yeah. And I just want to thank you all for in advance for your support of our grant proposal and request for myself, our board, but also for the 50,000 K-12 students that we serve every year from 68 counties across Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. These improvements will make a significant difference in the impact of them and also our students here in Tallahassee, especially those from underserved communities. And thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Next speaker?
Max Epstein.
Name and address for the record, please, sir.
Hey everyone, Max Epstein, 1001 San Luis Road. I always hate to be the naysayer here that comes up here, but I have a lot of concerns about how this process transpired since 2018. I was involved in the original round of grants. There were 11 applicants. There was a process, a selection process, and then it went through political boards. The money was chopped up and none of the projects really happened. And then if you remember, this money has come back before you several times, or at least once, where the money was moved around and shifted to TLH Arts and other things like that. I don't think that the CRA had a good process in place. They also put more barriers of entry to these applications. There were only 4 applications this round. One was the Southside Art Complex that was disqualified. They were disqualified the first time around as well. And if you look at the Bradfordville Blues Club, you know, they could have used some of this money. And I'm sorry, one of the barriers was a $500,000 minimum award amount. You know, I was going in there looking for about $50,000 to do community work with one of our local high schools. And both of the organizations here already have been funded by the CRA. And I'm very supportive of them, but the money is going to just a select 2 organizations for this entire grant. And then if you look at Donna's proposal, they completely cut all of the programming associated with it. And I think it's just upgrades to the amphitheater. Well, we've already publicly subsidized that amphitheater a lot. I don't see $500,000 going to whatever that proposal is that's not programming is a good expenditure of our funds. You know, Commissioner Porter had asked the staff to see about breaking up the grant so there could be smaller pieces, chunks to go out. And I even attended one of the workshops at the in Bond at the Smith Williams Center. There was an African drum ensemble from the South Side, an African dance group, and me, and none of us qualified for it, so we just walked out. You know, I think you really need to take a look at this funding. I think you still can give funding to the 2 groups. I think you really should think about that $500,000 that's only going to amphitheater upgrades. You know, there are a lot of private enterprises out there that would be turning a profit when that thing loses money every year. You know, and the county had an opportunity to have a joint meeting about this and didn't. So you're the backstop here. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Commissioners, that concludes our speakers. Let me just note that we're also joined by Stephen Cox, our CRA director, as well. I see Lou Norvell is joining from the city attorney's office, and I just wanted to note that Carrie Post is also in attendance, again, for any questions that you might have. With that, Mr. Chairman, I hand it back to you.
Mr. Administrator, who pulled the item? I believe it was Commissioner Cummings, correct?
I think it was Commissioner Caban.
Caban. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go with Commissioner Caban, then Commissioner Pryor, Commissioner Cummings, would you like to speak to, and then Commissioner Cummings. Commissioner Caban, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. I'm preparing to make a motion, but I have a question to begin. I don't know if it's the county administrator or county attorney, but in regards to Indaba, are they subject to getting additional funding for programming? Or does that money have to be allocated through a different source?
I'm not sure about the question. I mean, so is your question, can we fund a portion?
The reason why I ask is I know they're looking for additional funding for programming. Is the CRA the right, and is that the right direction for them to get for programming?
Well, the CRA interlocal agreement, which governs the use of these funds, does provide that the funds are to be utilized for projects, programs, and expenses related to culture, visual arts, and heritage programs, performing arts space as part of the convention center project, or other performing arts projects. So It would seem to me a determination was made that they qualify under those criteria.
Okay. I know that the DRC, I'm on the board of the Downtown Redevelopment Commission. I know that we do have an allocated budget specifically for special events, and it's a program that we just released, Mr. Cox, earlier this year. So the motion I want to make a motion to staff recommendation option 1, but I also want to make an edit to staff recommendation. And it's more of an ethical recommendation. I believe when nonprofits or entities are receiving tax dollars, and especially for construction projects, I think that they should go through an invitation to bid. And I also think that they should look at working with OEV and the MWSBE program. And I would like to see the CRA be the scorekeeper on those invitations to bids. And the reason for that is to prevent nepotism, favoritism, and I think it's an overall better approach when we're seeing different organizations using tax dollars.
Thank you, sir. So motion on the floor is for option number 1 amended by Commissioner Caban for organizations, or for the, is the CRA, are you asking the CRA to entertain the thought of, because it's an interlocal agreement, I guess we will have to request that they add that to the interlocal agreement, I believe. So is that the way we would do that, Madam Attorney? That we amend the interlocal agreement to include the things he's requesting?
There is an interlocal agreement in place, but there is nothing that legally precludes the county from placing additional contingencies upon the approval of any funding in the approval process.
Would that have to be a part of the interlocal? Would that change the interlocal? Would it be, how would that work?
No, the city would just have to vote to approve the funding based on the same contingencies that the county, the basis for the county approval.
So Commissioner Caban, just so I understand, are you asking for those contingencies to be placed on these dollars that have been sent to us, or are you talking about in future funding?
I'm referencing these who have been sent to us and then also moving forward.
Okay. So we will send this back to the city asking them to, and I'm sorry, repeat it one more time.
So my motion would be staff recommendation, but sending this back to the city, requiring them to have an invitation to bid, and also work with OEV to go through the MWSBE program so that we could have minority and women-owned business bids. And then the CRA would score those to make sure that they've gone through the procurement process correctly.
All right, so let me tell you what's wrong with the motion. You can't approve the funding and then send it back.
Okay.
So what you would have to do in this case was, it wouldn't be staff recommendation. What you would be doing is, I would go option number 3, board direction, sending it back to, or option number 2, whichever one you would like to use, sending it back to the city for consideration of what you just asked, is that they do a ITB, that they do an ITB. So really this would throw out, Mr. Administrator, please explain. So I think it would throw out all funding that they've currently approved, send out an ITB for everyone. Please explain.
I think I understand where Commissioner Caban's trying to go, and of course I'd invite the county attorney to weigh in as well. But I think this is simply a matter of approving, again, option 1, but making those funding, again, we're dealing with a lot of facilities grants here. So it makes sense to assume that construction contracts would follow.
Correct.
With these agencies, and would make these dollars, your approval would be contingent on these agencies ultimately going through some sort of a competitive bidding process with public dollars on these grants.
And to expand on this motion, I think that when we're using public tax dollars, it's very easily for nepotism or favoritism or quid pro quos to take place. And I think this is an ethical layer to make sure that, our public tax dollars are being allocated and spent correctly.
Okay. So now I understand. So we're going to approve the funding, and then what we're going to say is those organizations that receive the funding would have to then go through an ITB process in order to access the money, and that will have to be proven to the city that they went through that process. Is that correct? Are we all good on that? Okay.
Correct.
Is there a second to that motion? Is there a second to that motion? Motion dies for a lack of a second.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't understand what the ITV, what is that?
Okay, so Commissioner Proctor, what he's saying is that basically the organizations would receive the funding, right? And so really, if we just give them the funding, what they would be able to do is that they would be able to go out and pick whoever they wanted to be the builder, because these are all facility grants. What Commissioner Caban is requesting is that if the gift of the funding is contingent on them going through a ITB process, where they would then get quotes from multiple organizations or multiple businesses to actually do the work that the funding is going to be used for.
Okay.
Versus them just being able to pick business and use them.
Now, what I also heard him say is that he wants an anti-nepotism clause in there as an ethical layer. Did I hear you say that?
Correct. And I think that when we're using public tax dollars, it's very easy for an organization to take the money and...
You can't use your cousin, to take this money and give it to your daddy.
Basically.
Correct.
Okay.
And so I think, quite frankly, I think that happens locally. And so I think the right approach would be we're using public tax dollars, just like we go through an invitation to bid process with tax dollars. If we're giving the money out, it only makes sense to go through that same process.
Okay, and he said also he would like to see the ethics of MWSB program applied, and that too carries forth with monies that we're endorsing. That was the second component, right?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I make that motion with all the other stuff.
All right, Commissioner Caban's motion has been made by Commissioner Proctor. Is there a second to the motion? I would guess that Commissioner Caban will second the motion. Discussion, I have Commissioner Cummings, Commissioner Minor, Commissioner Welch, and Commissioner O'Keefe. Commissioner Cummings, you have the floor. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I asked for this. Well, first of all, let me thank the CRA board for their hard work. I know this has gone back and forth for a couple of years, but I asked that this item be pulled after I met with Ms. Donna Cotterell, and I think she's met with everybody. And I had some questions about the allocations. I had gone back and looked at all the applications, the applicants from the Challenger Learning Center, Lemoyne, as well as Indaba, I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly. And that application included several other entities. Southern Shakespeare Company, I think it was, the Tallahassee Symphony Orchestra, and a couple other entities, I think, joined together to submit their proposal. Their proposal specifically asked for funding for programming and for infrastructure. And when I looked at the applicable statute, Florida statute allows the funds to be used for programming and infrastructure. In other words, it doesn't exclude the use of the funds for programming. Well, after analyzing their application and looking at the award to Indaba, which specifically excluded programming, I had some concerns and wanted to see if someone could come to the meeting to explain that distinction. However, I learned from a county administrator that the CRA board had the authority to even more restrict the use of the funds. And if I'm misstating this, if somebody will correct me. And apparently what that board did is restricted the use of these dollars to just infrastructure. Even though Florida statute allows the funds to be used for programming and infrastructure, their internal procedures as it related to these funds indicated that they could only be allocated for infrastructure. And of course, that infrastructure for Indaba is to do some renovations to the Adderley Amphitheater. I believe that's what owned by the city of Tallahassee. So I understood, and after having researched it and looked at it, Ms. Cotterell's concern that their allocation would be used to renovate a structure that's owned by the city of Tallahassee. Whereas if you look at Lemoyne, their allocation is going to be used by their nonprofit as well as, I believe, the Challenger Learning Center will be used for renovation and infrastructure of their own nonprofit. So I had some concerns about that. I'm not sure, Mr. County Administrator, if somebody can expound on that distinction as to why the CRA, prior to this allocation, restricted the use of the funds and excluded programming as permissible use of those funds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I see that Mr. Norvell is making his way up to the podium, and we appreciate that. Let me just underscore something with before Mr. Norvell and it speaks, and I know that he can provide a lot more detail on this, but it was always the intent of the board that the CRA would develop the program guidelines and that sort of thing for the CRA for this particular grant, notwithstanding the broader Florida statute interpretation of the usage of the proceeds of the TDT revenues and that sort of thing. But I just wanted to say that before Mr. Norvell started. So, Mr. Norvell.
Lou Norvell with the City Attorney's Office. So, Commissioner, under this grant, the programming was not excluded. So it was eligible for funding. When it was reviewed, which included the committee, their recommendation was to limit the funding or the award of this grant to the infrastructure. So it's not that it was ineligible. It's not that the CRA said that they would not fund the programming, but it's the recommendation that with the limited amount of funds that were available, that for this particular request, that it would be limited to the improvements at the amphitheater.
Commissioner Cummings?
If I can follow up, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for that response. But that was with the understanding that the Adelaide Amphitheater is pretty much owned by the city.
It is a city facility. This request, and we've got representatives here from the applicants, that they requested these improvements that would be for the benefit and for the use of these groups. It is at the city facility, but it was requested by these nonprofits for their benefit.
Okay, and if I can just follow up. So is it your understanding then that the funds that have been allocated to Indaba, the CRA does have the authority then to reallocate those funds and use a portion of the $500,000 or something that was allocated to them, that a portion of that could be reallocated for programming?
So the short answer is that Indaba is eligible. The programming was deemed to be eligible. So the request here, and it's a multiple step process, is that the Board of County Commissioners has to approve the award of a grant as well as the City Commission. So you have a recommendation before you. If you want to make a different recommendation, you've got the grant amount. Indaba was deemed to be eligible, but what the recommendation has come to you from the review committee, from TDC, from the CRA.
Half of them the same person though.
So
CDC, the
CRA and the city is the same.
CRA is the same thing. So
quick question.
Their independent votes is not independent. It's just
quick question. So if, because it sounds like you're the programming piece of it. If the vice chair wanted them to consider programming, because you said they created a little more stringent guidelines to say they will only include facilities, then that board would have to go back, the CRA would have to go back and reconsider that piece as a whole before they would be able to increase any funding, because right now programming is not included in the consideration for funding at all, correct?
So what has come to you is a recommendation for funding. You have the applications. I guess in theory, if you wanted to approve something different than what was recommended to you, it's within the realm of possibilities.
So we could approve program funding, and then it would have to go back to the CRA to see if they approve in the city and the TDC.
Well, any approval has to go to the city commission. Now, whether or not it goes back to CRA versus goes back to the city commission, somebody else will have to determine that. But any approval of the funding under the interlocal agreement has to be approved by the city commission.
All right. Madam Vice Chair, you have the floor. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Mr. Chair, I move that as it relates to the programming, to the allocation for Indaba.
Point of order. I'm so sorry. Point of order. There is a pending motion on the floor. So
It'd be a substitute.
Substitute motion.
Yes. Thank you, Madam County Attorney. Mr. Chair, I would like to make a substitute motion and move that the grant to Indaba be amended to also include programming, and I'm not sure if I need to indicate a dollar amount. I have no idea.
Mr. Administrator?
That, of course, would require a whole recalculation of the grants, or you could just simply add a step to the process and ask the CRA, in this case, to reconsider their proposal and to reconsider Indaba's programming funding.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, on
Mr.
point.
County Administrator.
Mr. Administrator, could they reconsider Indaba's allocation without reconsidering everyone's allocation? Because they allocated all the money.
Right. There's only so much money to go around. So it would result in presumably another proposal to come back to this board.
Just specifically for Indaba?
No, they would have to actually reconsider everything because all the money was allocated. Give me a second. Commissioner, Madam Vice Chair?
Well, I would still like to, Mr. Chair, make a substitute motion that the CRA reconsider the allocation to Indaba to include programming. A part of that allocation includes programming as well as infrastructure.
All right. So substitute motion has been made that
I second it.
That the bids will be sent back, or that the recommendation will be sent back to the city for consideration of programming approval, program funding approval to Indaba as well as anyone else's application.
She didn't say anyone else.
Okay, well, just Indaba.
She said Indaba.
Seconded by Commissioner Proctor. I do have a process question there. Madam Attorney, could we specify that they just consider Indaba when it comes to programming, or would they have to extend that to other applicants as well?
I think based on the direction the board has provided, it would just be Indaba. They wouldn't be required to take that recommendation. And I think as the county administrator just pointed out, because there is limited funding,
yes,
if they consider the allocation for programming in addition to infrastructure for Indaba, it could affect the funding for the other two projects that are currently before the board. So just to make sure that's understood.
All right. Thank you for that process question. Okay, so motion on the floor, substitute motion on the floor, which will be voted on first, is by Commissioner Cummings, seconded by Commissioner Proctor, that the recommendations be sent back for ask for consideration of programming funding for Indaba specifically in this process. That motion again is made by Commissioner Cummings, seconded by Commissioner Proctor. I have Commissioner Minor, Welch, O'Keefe, Proctor, and Caban in queue to speak. Commissioner Minor, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're really discussing two different things now. One is Commissioner Cummings' motion. That is a substitute motion. It still includes Commissioner Caban's corollary to option one. Is that correct?
It does not.
It does not.
So here's what I would like to do if I can. Since the substitute motion is up first, can we just focus the conversation around the substitute motion?
Yeah.
And if that passes, okay. If it does not pass, then we'll discuss the main motion on the floor.
Sounds good, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So, Commissioner Cummings, just to clarify, so your intent with this substitute motion is to take the Indaba portion of the allocation within the $570,550 and basically divert that from the capital improvements portion strictly to programming, not affecting the other co-applicants with this portion. Is that correct? Okay. I guess the question, so in other words, you were asking the CRA to reconsider just Indaba's portion of the funding to allow them to have programming instead of the capital improvements.
Not instead, but to consider programming as well. Absolutely.
Okay. In addition to, but the money's finite, so it would basically be a reallocation of the existing funds, the $2,049,000. Right?
Absolutely, because as allocated, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
As allocated at this point, Indaba is restricted to renovating the Adderley Amphitheater.
Yep.
That's owned by the city.
Yeah. I'm inclined to accommodate Indaba, but my concern at that point would be, and hopefully someone here can answer the question, if we do that, if let's say you make that recommendation to the CRA, and the CRA actually does follow through on that, and they basically have the Indaba portion funding be allowed to go to programming, how would that affect the existing capital improvement application with the other organizations? Is anyone, Mr. County Administrator, is there anyone here that might be able to answer that question? Mr. Nobel?
I could answer that question, but go ahead.
Well, so the capital improvements is the only recommendation for funding. So if you reduce that amount, you don't get those improvements. So it would have to be something less. So if you partially fund programming, there will have to be a reduction of the improvements to the amphitheater.
Right. And that makes sense. Do we know how much of I don't have that part of the application in front of me. Do we know how much the Indaba portion is part of the $570,000?
So the 570, Indaba is part of that consortium that requested. The 570, as I understand it, are the improvements. There is no funding for programming in that. That was an additional $430,000 or so for programming.
Yeah, I get it. So basically the co-applicants here all got together for the $570,000 for capital improvements. There's really no way to easily divide the Indaba portion out for programming based on the application.
Correct. There would just have to be a reduction of the improvements, and then money would be then allocated towards programming.
Yeah.
I will mention that CRA staff are here, and they are looking for some ways to provide some funding for some of the Indaba programming. There's also an additional $50,000 that's still in this pot that could be allocated to programming for Indaba as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Norvell. Appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Welch?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will not be able to support the motion. As I understand it, it's essentially you're going to leave Lemoyne and this Challenger Learning Center now in limbo. It's gunking up the works because they've got approvals for these amounts. That amount is finite. If we send this back to the CRA or the City Commission or the same thing they are, they're going to have to take from the other options to fund any programming. And I assume that Lemoyne, Mr. Norvell, can you answer this question for me? Is there any programming funding in the Lemoyne allocation or the the Learning Center allocation?
No, the Lemoyne is for improvements to their property. For the Challenger, it's for the Digistar planetarium.
Right.
It is.
So those applications have been made. There's no funding for programming there. They may have programming things they would like to do too. So then you're kind of saying, go reconsider the whole thing and add programming to it. For me, I can't support that because I feel like Lemoyne and Challenger are kind of being, thrown out for further consideration or to be poached, in other words, to get funding for programming for Indaba. And so I cannot support that motion. The other one I had the same concerns about too, and gunking it up, but we can have that discussion next. But the idea that we're going to send this back to the CRA and just say, hey, we want Indaba to have programming funding, take $200,000 from each of the other two. If I heard correct, it's $400-something thousand for programming that Indaba is requesting. They're going to have to take that money from those other two projects. And to me, that's not fair to those other two applicants who applied, went through the process, and got funding. I mean, Indaba's not getting nothing. They are getting some funding that will help facilitate their programming that could be accessed through other means, but we're operating within the scope of these projects and this grant program and these applications. And so I can't support that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner O'Keefe, followed by Proctor, Caban, and Vice Chair comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have just a couple of questions that lead to discussion. I came in here having spoken with Donna and having read that the reason the proposal was not fully funded because proposals couldn't do programming. But what if I am understanding correctly from the city attorney's office is that was not the case. If CRA reviewed the application and thought it was appropriate to approve programming, they could. But they reviewed the application and the board on the merits in their scoring decided it was not. So we would not be overriding a policy. We would be returning recommendations purely based on what we saw in the applications versus what the review committee saw. And I guess that's a question in the form of statement, and the city attorney is nodding at me for the record.
Yes, Commissioner, that's correct. So as part of the review process, the committee looked at a number of different factors: feasibility, sustainability, contributions to the cultural plan, and their recommendation was based on that. There was scoring. Your TDC looked at this. COCA also looked at it. So these things were vetted. Again, it was not because the programming was ineligible. It was a determination that these, again, with limited funding, this was just the recommendation for the use of the funds.
Thank you. So the selection committee was totally within their rights to award that if they wanted to.
Yes, and they had to because there was a limited amount of funds. They could not have funded the request 100%. There was not enough money.
Thank you. And then my question is, you mentioned that there's an additional $50,000 in the fund still that, and my question is that $50,000, does the county commission have the authority, if we wanted to decide that we would like to award that to Indaba tonight and then have it sent back to the city, or does there have to be an extended process, a process?
So I'm going to look to staff on this one. My understanding is that there's $50,000 that's essentially accrued interest. It would be outside of this process. Any award of the funding has to be approved by both your board and the city commission. So, but I think in theory, and I may have some people that are going to disagree with me, that you could at least make a recommendation for an award of that $50,000 and send it to the city commission.
Just on that clarification, the item references approximately $2 million a few times, but more specifically, it's $2,049,000. Based on the CRA's direction, they fully funded the Lemoyne project, the Challenger project, with the remaining funds going to the Indaba project. So our agenda item incorporates that extra $49,000 to the Indaba project. So there's not an extra $50,000 to be spent. It's all accounted for in the materials.
Okay, so there's not extra money there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then finally, there are, this application had co-applicants. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but I know there was Word of South. There was, I saw in there was input from Shakespeare, but there was also input from some of the organizations that use the amphitheater. And so we've heard from Indaba at this meeting, and since our current motion limits the change within that amount to not affect Lemoyne or Challenger, any reduction would impact them. And I would like to know if any of those organizations that might be impacted that were on this proposal are here and would like to speak since Indaba spoke.
We do have representatives here from COCA and the Challenger Center. I think what Commissioner O'Keefe is asking is, do you request to speak on whether or not you would like to consider?
No, it's confusing enough. It's not your fault. My understanding is the motion is only to evaluate Indaba, and so this wouldn't impact Challenger. This wouldn't impact Lemoyne. There are co-applicants with the Indaba application. Are any of the co-applicants here from the organizations and want to speak for themselves?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, on point real quick.
On point.
It will impact the others, though. Yeah. That's what we're saying, right?
Yeah,
it's not. We are not talking about just Indaba, I'm not talking about just Indaba's cohort. I'm talking about if you send this back, it will impact Challenger and it will impact Lemoyne's allocations. You cannot, it's a finite amount of money. So if you add any money to the 570,000, it's going to come from Challenger, it's going to come from Lemoyne. That's my understanding.
I think everybody understands that. Is there anybody at this dais that does not understand that piece?
I understand.
May I do a point of clarification?
No,
That's my motion.
wait. Answer my question. Is there anybody at this dais that does not understand adding money to Indaba's request would take money away from the Challenger Center and would take money away from Lemoyne? Is there anybody that's, yes or no? Is there anybody-
Yes.
Okay, everybody understands that?
No. Yes, there
Mr.
is
Chair, I think
someone
we
who
need
does that.
clarification.
So you did not understand that piece?
I didn't understand the piece, and I think that's where the vice chair is coming. There are two ways you can do finite policy money. You can say, we'll increase the 500 and something, and then that comes from the pool. But I believe the motion is not to increase the 575. It's to reevaluate the 575 to what portion goes to program or equipment.
Okay.
And that's the finite, is the 575 and change, for not the exact amount, is the only thing up for discussion in this motion.
Is that your intent?
That was my intent. Thank you,
Perfect.
Commissioner O'Keefe. Yes.
So now does everybody
it's
understand?
not intended to affect.
Does
Lemoyne.
everybody understand that? So the intent is not to increase the funding of Indaba, but instead to change the allocation for that 570, for some of that 570 to be included as programming.
Instead of physical.
Instead of physical, instead of the capital improvement to Adderley.
But just on point,
As clear as mud, here we go.
what Commissioner Welch said, which I think might have started some confusion, but he was right, is that it does affect Lemoyne and Challenger in terms of the delay. It doesn't affect the funding, but it affects the delay because it has to go back to CRA. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so Commissioner Proctor, that is the motion. I want to make sure that you understand that was the intent of the motion. Is you still willing to second that motion?
I respect the thoughts of the vice chairperson, and I would defer. She's trying to get a finger in before I talk.
All right. So look, I still got Commissioner
maintain
Proctor,
second.
Commissioner Command, Commissioner Cummings to speak. On point, Commissioner Cummings.
Just one other
Yes, ma'am.
point. One other point I want to make as well. In my motion, it references Indaba, but I recognize that there was a conglomerate of different entities that submitted their application. And so when I said Indaba, I also was including the Southern Shakespeare Company and all those entities that came together to apply for that grant, Mr. Chair.
Right. Thank
And I
you.
just want to make sure the commission understands that as well.
All right. So we're going to go. I'm going to go just for clarification. The motion, the substitute motion on the floor, is to ask that the city reconsider or CRA reconsider the funding portions of the $570,000 to include a piece that's specifically for programming that will go to Indaba. That is the motion on the substitute motion on the floor, made by Commissioner Cummings, seconded by Commissioner Proctor. Everybody has an understanding of the substitute motion? All right. Commissioner Proctor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm unable to grasp why any of these groups have to pay for capital improvements and pay this hostage fee to get a little program dollars. The city is extracting from them an excise tax over and beyond the top. Why are any of these arts groups responsible, county attorney, for paying this ransom?
Anybody want to answer that question?
This is grant funding, so I'm not sure what you're referring to as the excise tax.
On page 4, you come with me, the second graph from the bottom. Indaba, Florida, Life Fest, Tallahassee Symphony and Southern Shakespeare, Inc., Capital Cascades Amphitheater improvements. This project calls for capital and programming improvements at the Adderley Amphitheater. However, the funding recommendations provide only for the proposed capital improvements. The funding recommendations provide only for the capital improvements, meaning there is no only for the capital improvements. Why should these people put their credit card and names up for the capital improvements, which call for the purchase, one, of the installation of video screens alongside the amphitheater to enhance performances, two, the purchase of a digital sign to be visible from Monroe Street to promote amphitheater? How does that enhance Indaba, Tallahassee Symphony, Southern Shakespeare, or the Capital Cascades improvement, of course, them, but these entities? What does putting a sign up on Monroe Street due for their efforts to move the mission, to meet the mission, their aspiration to provide cultural performances in our community. Something is deeply wrong, and I think the vice chair was getting at that. And the other ask of this is that what percentage would Indaba be held accountable for? What percentage would Symphony, what percentage is Southern Shakespeare being extracted for? But it says in our write-up that the funding recommendation provides only for proposed capital improvements. So it seems like it would be 100%. Help me to understand this language.
So I bet you I know what you're about to say, is that the grant application requested those things.
That is correct. So they asked for it for their benefit. The city's not requiring it. They asked for it.
Yeah, it's because they asked for it, Commissioner Pratt.
I can't believe that private interests would put their names up to improve the city's property. The city's not going to put their name up to improve my property, yours. This is just logically illogic. And I feel that maybe the pressure, the undue influence of either the CRA or the city upon these groups, these people can't afford to lend their names to capital improvements. It seems like duress, and I feel like coercion. And if I'm wrong, somebody get me on the right track.
Say what? Could I ask the grant writer for Indaba to come up, please, real quick? Thank you, Ms. Cottrell. So the question is, you wrote that grant, correct?
Correct, with the aid of Mr. Mustin, who's here as well.
Right. Did the city make any request that you include their facilities at all in the
No, the city didn't make a request. Right. In the grant application itself, you can only request funding for improvements to buildings that are owned by municipalities.
Right.
And
so we chose
the amphitheater because all of us have used it before, and we know the improvements that need to be done. We know 100% of the people who use that amphitheater are going to benefit from those improvements. However, we didn't have a need for another building other than the Meisberg to have those improvements made to make it better for not just us, but for anyone else using those facilities.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, I withdraw my second.
All right, there we go. So we don't have a substitute motion on the floor. Okay, we do have a substitute motion on the floor. Motion made by Commissioner Cummings, seconded by Commissioner O'Keefe. All right, thank you, ma'am. So look, here I got Commissioner Caban, Commissioner Cummings, and then we're going to vote on that substitute motion. And after this item, we're going to break. Commissioner Caban.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Vice Chair, I share the same aspiration as wanting to help Indaba, but I also would like to see an ethical component when we're giving out taxpayer money. Would you be open to amending your motion, which I intend to support, in order so that whoever is applying for this money has to go through an invitation to bid on any construction? The reason for that is a clear picture of how business can be done, but if I can very easily write you a $20,000 donation to your nonprofit, and in turn, you award me a contract for construction, and I can charge whatever I want for the fee. And I think that when we're using taxpayer dollars, we need to have a level of protection to make sure that it is ethical, there's no nepotism, there's no quid pro quos. So I will, if you are willing to.
Madam Vice Chair, would you consider Commissioner Caban?
Absolutely.
All right, so that's been added to the motion.
Is the MW part on there?
And include the MWSBE, go through OEV, and they can work on the details.
Did you add that as well? All right, all Commissioner Caban's requirements have been added to the motion, to the substitute motion on the floor, made by Commissioner Vice Chair Cummings, seconded by Commissioner O'Keefe. Commissioner Minor, if it's not brief, I can't take it. You're dropping the second. Second has been dropped. So now the second's by Commissioner Caban. This thing keeps legs, man. Okay, well, all right, listen. Motion made by the Vice Chair, seconded by Commissioner Caban. We have Commissioner Minor. If it's brief, man, I'll take it. But this is the last comment. We're going to a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Cummings, I respect what you're trying to do. I can't support the motion on the floor, the substitute motion on the floor, because the applicants, the co-applicants, Indaba, Florida Lit Fest, TSO, Southern Shakespeare, they all agreed to partner together and submit this application. And it's been through the TDT, it's been through the CRA, it will go through the City Commission tomorrow. But we know that it passed the CRA previous to this, which is the same, it's a different governing body, it's a different legal entity, but it's the same number of people. So if it passed the CRA, it's likely to pass the City Commission tomorrow because it's the same voting members. We don't know if some money will be diverted to programming, how this would affect Word of South, TSO, Southern Shakespeare, and the infrastructure projects. We don't know how much programming will be allocated to this. We're asking the CRA to reconsider that. The reason why I can't support the motion is because these partners banded together to apply for this money, and it's gone through the process at this point. Together, they're all working on these capital improvements, which have been recommended to us to approve. So because of that, I think that Indaba and the others have submitted this application in good faith, and I'll support this as is so that we can get the money going, and also so that it doesn't delay funding to the Challenger Center in Lemoyne, which would not be affected anyway if there's a financial change, but it does delay that. As for Commissioner Caban's comment, I agree with you. We need to make sure that any money allocated is done in a way that it does not suffer from nepotism and that includes minority and women contracting opportunities. I don't know, maybe Mr. Novell can say, I don't know what the process is for CRA money right now. Maybe that exists, maybe it doesn't. But I think that's another discussion we need to have. As for the motion, as for the substitute motion, I can't support this though because the Indaba and the partners have applied to this and they've worked together to get this funding. So I don't see it as a coerce type of action. I think Indaba actually agreed to partner on this to get this funding. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Tell you what, here's what I want to do, just real quick, no more comments from the commission. I do have somebody from Southern Shakespeare here. Do you have any objection to the change in what we're requesting that programming be added into this contemplation?
Word of South, not Southern Shakespeare. So I'm Mark Mustian. I'm the president of Word of South. I mean, we partnered, together to do this. So I mean, if you want to, allocate some for programming, fine with us. We'll figure it out. I mean, it'll mean we'll have to adjust what we had proposed to do at the amphitheater. We can do that. So, it's up to you guys, but just in answer to your question, that's it.
So I'll tell you what, just real quick, I have not said a word. I'm not entertaining any more conversation from us. I am going to support the substitute motion on the floor, and here's why. It does not affect the funding of Lemoyne. It does not affect the funding of Challenger. All it simply does is give the city an opportunity to address whether or not they're going to entertain the thought of the CRA of including programming in this piece. And if they don't want to entertain it, they'll send it back to us, but it does give them the opportunity for us to say, we'd like for you to entertain such. So, and it's just so that 570, and I do think Commissioner Caban's additions there does give me some comfort that once we give this money, that the money will go through a process that we can all feel comfortable with moving forward. So now we're going to go to a vote. All those in favor of the substitute motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
All right, so I believe we got 3. Commissioner Pratt, where are you?
The city owes these people a finder's fee. They should not get 100% of this money. So I'm supporting the motion.
All right, so
the city needs to do the right thing by them.
Motion passes 4-3. It is now 4:55. I wouldn't dare try to take another item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll see you back, Mr. Chairman.
That concludes consent.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
One more quick thing.
Yes.
Would there be a way for us to entertain a motion to basically move forward with Lemoyne and Challenger so that they are not delayed in their funding, but that we only focus, that Commissioner Cummings' motion?
I'll tell you what, I will entertain that motion. There's a motion on the floor to move forward in Lemoyne and to move forward Challenger in their funding, made by Commissioner Myers, seconded by Commissioner Cummings. Any comment? No comment. Any objection to the motion? Seeing no objection, show it passed unanimously. So now what we're doing now is that the Indaba
piece will be sent back for reconsideration of programming. That $570,000 and $550 will be sent back to see if the city wants, or CRA wants to add programming or change that, some of that to be programming versus all facility grants or construction grants. I would recommend on the back end of this that the partners, all the partners get together and have some kind of congruency there over, because I did hear Word of South former Commissioner Mushin speak on, there would have to be a reworking there of what will be done to the amphitheater. So I would recommend that those partners get together and be on one page when they go back to say what that needs to look like. Is that sufficient? Is that fair? All right. Seeing that, we are in recess until 6 o'clock.